So I finally finished watching Three Body, the Tencent video adaptation of The Three Body Problem, written by Cixin Liu. I have covered the book on this channel before. If you haven't checked that out, please go listen to that if you would. This is a free on YouTube adaptation of The Three Body Problem, which I'm going to go ahead and say right up front is a pretty impressive thing to be able to watch for free. Now, it does come with some downsides. This is an extremely long series. This is 30 episodes, which is why it's taken me months to actually come out with a review for it, because I'm finally getting around to actually finishing it. Each episode is roughly 45 minutes long, which, like I said, 30 episodes at 45 minutes is a ton of content. The series is all English subtitled for anybody who, like me, only speaks English. So I, again, appreciate that they took the time to go through and subtitle the entire thing for more people to enjoy. I'm going to try to keep most of this first part as spoiler-free as possible, so I will let you know. I'll talk about spoilers towards the end, just a few things that I would like to bring up, maybe that some people want to hear about. But for the most part, I will try to warn you if it's going to be a heavy spoiler thing. If you have not read the book or watched the series at all, I will try to keep it so that I don't ruin anything for you. Now, I'm sure many people have heard of the Three Body Problem book, or sometimes called the Three Body series. I think less people have heard of this adaptation, but I know a lot of people have heard of this, the upcoming Netflix adaptation. So I thought I'd try to get my review of this Chinese adaptation out before the Netflix series comes out, because I will hold my thoughts on that series until it comes out. This adaptation, as I said, is, 30 episodes long, but those 30 episodes nearly mirror the book word for word. So if you have listened to or read the book, this entire series is going to feel right at home for you, and you're going to see many of these words jump off the pages right onto the screen. And it honestly is pretty impressive how closely they stuck to the source material in this one. I will actually go a step further and say I think they did a better job in the series at some parts of bringing the characters to life, actually. Many of the characters in the book are pretty flat, and we don't get a whole lot of background on them or anything like that. It's mostly using them to kind of move the plot forward that needs to be told by the end of the book. And that's fine. I enjoyed the book. Again, please go listen to my review of the book. I greatly enjoyed the book. But this adaptation is one of the few video adaptations of a book that I could almost recommend to someone if they had said, I don't want to read the book. I'm not really interested in the book. You could probably watch this show and you're going to get all of the information from the book plus a little extra. Some of the parts that were brought to life in the show, in my opinion, are done incredibly well. Almost better than, I could have done portraying them from my mind. I think that they did a great job bringing these scenes from the book to life. And I'll talk about it a little bit more after past the spoilers. There's some scenes they brought to life that I thought might have been impossible to make look good on screen. I will say that with this free YouTube series being available, the Netflix series has a lot to live up to, because this has pretty much 100% followed the book, as well as expanding on some stuff, plus done a very good job about it. And I mean, the changes they made in this were done in good taste, unlike, I don't know, maybe some American shows. Excuse me. And can I also, I'm just going to straight up come out and say this. Can I just say that the guy who plays General Chang, this guy has impeccable posture. I mean, look at this dude. Look at him. He walks with his hands behind his back. That's how straight up this man is walking. I mean, it just doesn't get any better posture than that. I think that the acting in the show is done incredibly well. Even though I can't understand the language necessarily that they're speaking, and I spent most of my time obviously reading subtitles instead of viewing most of the acting, a lot of the body language, the inflections, and the emotions come across extremely well, in my opinion. These characters were cast very well, and I think that the people that they cast to play them to the best of their abilities, and it really does come across in this. A huge standout for me is the character of Dashu. I think that his character especially is very well mirrored from the books. The actor who they got to play him, I think, embodies the character very well. There's quite a bit of CGI in this show as well, but I think it was used in pretty good taste. I don't think it's overused. And the parts that it was used, aside from while they are in the three-body game, which I think maybe looks kind of like an older version of Grand Theft Auto, some of the CGI that they use is actually extremely outstanding. And it's almost seamless when they meld from the real world to some of these CGI shots. And I do have to give them credit for that it's a great thing to be able to do these days, especially when CGI is typically overused in most media, and it's not always necessarily used to the best of its ability. I think that this was a good achievement for them. I will warn you that if you sit down to watch this entire thing in English like I did, actually, I guess if you watch it in any language, you're going to run into this issue where sometimes the sound pretty much just cuts out. It either runs completely silent, or it might have some generic, I'm going to say generic, but that's not necessarily true. I guess it's kind of copy and pasted music that's almost stuck in every single time this happens. And unfortunately, it will play completely over the background audio. And I guess the reason they did this, at least on the YouTube version, is because they used a lot of copyrighted music. And so to get around that and not have the episodes taken down or probably demonetized for any reason, they went ahead and they cut the old audio, and they either left it completely blank or they stuck these songs in over the top to kind of get around. It's not a deal breaker by any means, but it's just an unfortunate consequence of them using copyrighted music. Hopefully, if they do a season 2 of this, they work around that, or at the very least, if they're going to use copyrighted music, run it on a separate track so that if that problem comes up, they can cut just the copyrighted music out and splice in different music so that we can still hear the audio, because it just is a bummer when the characters' voices just completely cut off. They're still saying things, and unfortunately it cuts the subtitles out as well. So you get zero information maybe for a full 30 seconds or so. Again, not a deal breaker, just be aware that it is in there. There's also a lot of very generic sound effects used at very odd times. One of the standouts to me is the characters are putting on a virtual reality suit, and for some reason they thought it necessary to, instead of using just a high quality microphone and picking up just the sound effects of the characters putting these on, they stuck in what sounds like video game gun reloading noises as they're kind of clipping on their gloves and their suit. It's very strange, it's a very bizarre choice, but again, not a deal breaker, just be aware, it is there. This is a very, very minor nitpick, but I thought it was weird that there's parts where they'll show things written down either on paper or on somebody's computer screen, and the image is blurred out. Which I find, I don't know what the rules are in China as far as sharing information, but I would imagine that most of the information put in the show is just made up. Therefore, it wouldn't really matter if the rest of the world saw it, but apparently somebody thought it needed to be censored for some reason, and I just found it very strange. It doesn't detract at all from the show, it's just there, there will be a block of writing on a piece of paper, and I'm not kidding, a couple of words will be blurred out as if it's a redacted, file, even though it should all just be made up information. But maybe there truly is some sensitive information on those pieces of paper. I don't really know. Something else to be aware of, that because this is a YouTube adaptation, just know that some episodes, because they run about 45 minutes, they still stick ads in about every couple minutes, so they are completely plagued with ads. Not all of the episodes, some of the earlier episodes especially, I don't remember any ads running. And I'm sure this can be avoided with ad blocker or paying for YouTube Premium or whatnot, but if you are a simpleton like me, just know you're going to have to sit through some ads, or at the very least, lean up and click skip. I thought it was a strange choice in some parts too, that some of the characters' voices are redubbed clearly after the original shooting of the film. And obviously, even though I don't know, what they are saying, it just is obvious that the voice being portrayed is not coming from the person speaking. It's not coming from their mouth. I don't know why this was done. I don't know if this was done in post. Maybe they screwed up the line and it needed to be reshot. I'm not sure, but just know that it's there. It's not very often, but it is in there. And I gotta say it, that the gal who plays Ya Wen-jie, she's just so hot. No, not the young Ya Wen-jie. No, I'm talking about the old one. Oh man, just look at this cougar. Whew. Yeah, so be aware of that. You're gonna see a lot of her, and thank God, because man. But in all seriousness, I do have to say that the actresses who play Ya Wen-jie, both young and old, do an incredibly good job. Especially young Ya Wen-jie. The turmoil that the character goes throughout the series is very well done by this character. And this might be a little bit spoilery, there are some things about her background that they chose to skip in the show compared to in the book. If you've read the book, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I think that was a huge disappointment. The choices that Ya Wen-jie makes are for a very specific reason, and the choice to leave out some of those things that led her to this decision, I think, were a bummer. I can understand maybe why they left them out. Maybe it was never even intended to be put into the show. But there are there's missing time in one of the episodes. I can't remember exactly which episode, but I think there's like a 10 or 15 minute missing time span, which I'm wondering if that was where these scenes were supposed to fall. Things from her past that would have helped clarify a lot of why she makes the decisions she does make in her future. Again, minor detail, but it is there. And last but not least, I do have to give a big shout out to the actor who played Mike Evans. I think he does a very good job of portraying this character, especially some of his more heartfelt moments that we're going to get from his character, both young and old. I think his character really brings those emotions across, and I do think that we could snippet those pieces out and just show them to people in general, because I think his messages are ones that a lot of people need to hear, and they're just overall a very strong and supporting message. This also might be a slight spoiler, but I think it was a good detail that when we first see Mike Evans' character, he hasn't been in China for very long, so he speaks only English. But then we see him again a few years later, and I do think that it's a good touch that he is mixing in local dialect with English. The character does a great job of switching back and forth. And if I'm not mistaken, the actor who plays Mike Evans does a lot of this stuff on YouTube, where he shows you how to properly pronounce things and get your dialect correct if you were to speak in, I'm going to say Chinese. I know that's not correct. I believe they are probably speaking Mandarin. Please somebody correct me if I am wrong. Okay, I'm going to go into some spoilers now. I'm not going to cover everything about the show. It's a ton of show. I seriously think that you should go watch this show. It's not going to be for everyone. This is an incredibly slow-burning show. Now, if you've read the book, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, because the book is a pretty slow burn as well. But the older I get, the more I appreciate this content. This took me a long time to get through, simply because it is a ton of content. So I guess if you need something to fill nearly 30 hours of your time, this would be good. Just know, if you only speak English, like I do, as I stumble across my own English words, just know, obviously, you're going to have to do a lot of reading, and you're probably not going to be able to do anything else but sit down and watch this show. It's just a good adaptation, though, of the book. I think it sticks so true and so close to the source material. It's impressive. Especially if you have read the book, I think you would be doing yourself a disservice, actually, by not watching this one. And there's very, very few shows that I could say that for. Any other shows, even that I hold in high esteem, compared to the books, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, things of this nature, they don't even hold a candle to how closely this sticks to the source material. Yeah, I think that Lord of the Rings does a good job, but let's be realistic, those adaptations are not super close to the source material, and they take a ton of creative liberties. This show doesn't do a lot of that. It stays true to the source material. It shows you exactly what was portrayed in the book, and I thought that it does a fantastic job of that. A couple of those spoilers, though, that I will say is I think it was a bummer that we didn't see what happened to Yaoi and Jie's dad, Yazatai, when she was younger. Now, in the book, that's the revolution scene, I believe, where he's put up on stage and he is beaten to death by these by Red, are they the Red Guard, I believe is what they're called. We don't see that part in the show. It's brought up later in the show that she maybe is seeking retribution for those people beating her father to death. And we actually don't see that in the show either, her going and meeting with these Red Guards like we did in the book. I'm not so much disappointed in that, because she sums it up very well, and she says that she took her retribution by the choice she made for all of humanity. But I am disappointed that we didn't get to see this what I'm assuming is a very disturbing part happening to this very young girl that would lead... It's just one more building block, leading up to the choice that she would have made later in her life. I thought that the Judgment Day scene with the Zither, or the Flying Blade, was done incredibly well in this show. I really had my doubts. After seeing some of the CG earlier in the show, I thought, there's no way they're going to be able to pull this crazy scene from this book off. And it's such a powerful scene in the book. Honestly, I wouldn't have wanted them to do the scene in the show any other way. I think that they did an incredibly good job of it. There are minor details, like I think that the Judgment Day ship was cut into potentially far too many pieces compared to the amount of nanomaterial that they had, but I'm going to let that one slide because it turns out so goddamn cool in the end that I was impressed all the way around. That part was super impressive. I also thought that the scenes that take place in the three-body game of the unfolding of the proton were very well done also. Those were other scenes that I was worried when I started watching this that are very powerful in the book, and I thought there's no way they're going to be able to portray these in the show. I might be completely misremembering from the book, but I don't necessarily know that it was done that way, where Wang Miao and Da Shi were able to see these things within the three-body game. I thought that we, as the listener, were just given information about them, but I could be wrong. Either way, the unfolding of the proton and the creating of the Sophons was done very well. This is another part where the CGI is done very tastefully, and it's just done very well, and it's not too over the top. It's just done well, just go check it out. And last but not least, I think that Dasha's speech at the end of the show about the bugs is incredibly moving. I can't understand what he's saying, obviously, aside from reading the subtitles. But his emotion, the way it's shot, the way the locusts are added in, there's a lot of motion in the shot, and the bit of background music to accompany it is all just done very well. And it's pretty moving. A lot of people could listen to it because it's pretty inspiring. He is basically saying that there's no reason to ever give up hope because there's always, a way through. So, I think that part's very well done too. Now, I didn't want to make this too terribly long, so I will try to keep it kind of short, and I'll just give you kind of my wrap-ups. But again, I recommend this one. If you don't really like a good long slow burn of a show, maybe skip this one. Maybe wait for the Netflix series to come out. I don't know. I'm gonna reserve judgment on that pretty much completely until the show comes out, and then I'd like to give my thoughts about it. If I had to guess, I will bet that the Netflix adaptation, though, will be no more than 12 episodes at the most. Most likely it'll be closer to 10. And that's just a classic way that we do things here in the United States, is we try to trim off what people would, say is the fat, and only keep the incredibly interesting points. But honestly, after watching this, I realistically wish that more shows would take a risk like this, especially in the United States. I know our attention spans are incredibly freaking short nowadays, but this was almost a breath of fresh air to be able to sit and literally see this book come to life on the screen, word for word. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I really truly think this is something special, and I think that more people should watch it, and the word should get out about it more, because I do think that it deserves the attention that they obviously put into making the show. I don't know how things work with media coming out of China. I have no idea, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. But if it's anything like this, if they truly put the effort and the resources and the time into adapting things so closely to source material, then I, for one, am really hoping that they continue this and that they will adapt the next 2 books in the Redemption of Time, or excuse me, not the Redemption of Time. Oh, I slipped up, and that was the one thing I didn't want to mention in this. I'm going to call it the 3-body series, but 3-body problem, The Dark Forest, and Death's End. I hope that they do adapt those, because for one, I will really be looking forward to watching those in this format as well. I'm going to jump back in here and say that I assume they do plan on continuing with the series, because there are a few, I'm going to call it spoilers, for the next book, including some shots where they are dropping hints about the Luoji character. So definitely looking forward to that. I guess let me know what you guys thought about this one if you did see this show. There is also, how do I want to put this in here? There was some controversy when this first came out. There's a gentleman who was trying to get his audience to boycott this show because of some stuff that is said about Cixin Liu and his connection with some things potentially going on over in China. Basically boycotting the art because of things that the artist has done and or said. I don't agree with that, and I think if you came here, trying to figure that stuff out, I'm just going to say I completely detach myself. Detach the artist from the art. I can still enjoy the art without necessarily having any knowledge of the artist themselves, and I think that that's an important thing to remember. I would also like to shout out my buddy over at Generic Entertainment. He was kind of the one who inspired me to watch this show, so I will try to remember to leave a link in the description. Please go check out his review of the show as well. And then also, I did an episode with him, so please go check out that episode of the podcast. We both kind of talk about the show and the books and what we think about them over there as well. So please feel free to comment. Send me an email, kotpl.pod@gmail.com. Let me know what you guys think about this one, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you all for watching. Hope to catch you in the next one.